Aha. The three fundamental things when we speak and when we get doctors on, or healthcare professionals, or nutritionists, or anybody who has become, well, what we would call an expert, or who is passionately interested in health, usually their talks fall within these three principles. Number one, of course, the most important, is the regenerative capacity of the human body. We need to know what our bodies are capable of. Too much of the time, we tend to think that, well, when I get to be 40, it means I should start wearing glasses. Or when I get to be 40, I can't play basketball anymore. Or I can't do this anymore. I can't do that anymore, because our culture has trained us to do so. Not so. There are cultures all over the world where people are doing amazing things even into their 80s and 90s. And yes, having babies into their 80s and 90s. So we need to know about that. We need to know what our bodies can do. Number two, of course, what our bodies need. That would include nutrition. It would include a host of other things, too, that other than nutrition. And so we have different people who come and speak about these things and help us to understand them. Number three, threats to our health. And if there ever was a day when we should be understanding what these threats are, I think it's now. It's here. And that's our talk on stress would be part of that, too. And if you remember, about, I think 2 weeks ago, we had, well, I think it's more than 2 weeks ago, when we had Rick Deitch. Rick Deitch, he's a biochemist who deals with zeolites and heavy metals, and he came and did an excellent job. He holds the record now for the most number of people on our webinars, and he did an excellent job on zeolites and what they do to remove heavy metals from our bodies. Remember, heavy metals like mercury, cadmium, lead, these things are affecting us, affect our nervous systems, are affecting our endocrine systems, and affecting so many other systems in our bodies. Most especially with kids, because those kids' brains are still growing and still developing, and so it is crucial. It is crucial that we know what it takes. We understand that there are things out there that can help protect our families from the damaging effects of these toxins. And of course, there are different kinds. Of course, biological agents are out there too. I'm going to show you his picture in a minute, but Dr. Gordon Pedersen he works with a company that has come up with a new research in silver technology. It is not colloidal silver, but a silver technology that is actually has been proven to be effective against certain resistant bacteria. And if you know anything about bugs in the hospital now, folks, you better know that over 100,000 people die each year from hospital-acquired infections. In other words, when they came into the hospital for whatever it was, whether it was just a routine procedure or whether it was a major surgery, when they came into the hospital, they did not have that problem. When they left with major, major problems, including MRSA and VRE, which are laying waste to our people, to people who all over the country and really all over the world who have infectious conditions. Radiation is becoming a major problem now, and so we are going to get someone who can actually speak on radiation. We were supposed to have someone last week, didn't work out. So, not to worry, we're going to have some more people talk about it. Emotional stress, of course, folks. This is what we're going to be speaking about today. And there's a picture of Dr. Gordon Pedersen. He will be on in a few, I would say, a couple of weeks. He's going to be on to talk about these bugs that are affecting us today. All right, enough said. We are today going to talk about stress. And Sherry, you want to tell everybody how nice a person I am?
Yeah, we discussed that before the call, and I told him I'd be expecting a check in the mail. Okay, I would love to tell them about you, David. Okay, Dr. David is a medical doctor trained in both general medicine and radiation oncology. In addition, he holds a master's degree in business management. He's a published author, a college professor, a speaker and educator in the fields of health and nutrition and human potential. He has extensive experience in clinical medicine, nutrition, competitive sports, business, military ministry, and voluntary work. And all of this has prepared him, and he has gained essential skills in the area of communication and leadership. He does have a very unique perspective on things. If you've been listening to our webinars very long, you've probably picked up on that. He does, like I said, have a unique perspective on the human condition and a deep desire to help people solve their problems and fulfill their potential. That is the reason we are doing these webinars. As his friend and his business partner, I was thinking of, I wanted to throw in a couple of my own personal things instead of just reading his bio to you. It won't take long. But if there was, I was just thinking of a few words that I would use to describe him, and these are all true, and I made sure I was going to be nice. Really, these are words that describe David. He is trustworthy, he's honest, he's diligent, he's funny. Well, most of the time, and some of his jokes are kind of corny, but competitive, as you probably picked up from the competitive sports. He's intelligent. He's actually one of the smartest people I've ever met. A visionary. He's artistic and creative. If you've been on many of our webinars, he often will draw pictures for us to illustrate a concept. He's very friendly, and he's incredibly caring. And so with all that being said, David, I'll hand it back to you.
Oh, well, thank you, Sherry. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that you followed the script exactly as planned.
Okay. Okay, better get on with the webinar.
All right, thanks a lot, Sherry. I appreciate it. Okay. Why study stress? And that's a good question. Why do we need to study about it? I mean, basically everybody says, well, just deal with it. That's the usual thing, deal with it. You're not the only one who's stressed. Everybody's stressed, so deal with it. But I think there's a little bit more to it than that. Here are a few facts that we need to know about. Stress is at the root of quote-unquote burnout and costs the U.S. industry $300 billion in lost productivity. Ooh, that's pretty bad. More serious is the loss of talented, caring professionals who are more susceptible to burnout because of the emotional demands of their jobs. I understand dentists are probably one of the top, if not the number one, suicide rates profession out there. I still can't figure that out. I don't know why that should be a problem. Maybe looking into some bad teeth and bad oral cavities could be a problem, but I don't know why that should be. Anyway, that is what the statistics say. Here's another thing. 90% of all disease is caused or influenced by stress. What's the big deal? It affects your cell biology. It affects your thinking. It affects your IQ, your emotions, all 12 systems, including the immune, digestive, and cardiovascular systems. Think about that. Think about that. I'm going to show you a few things about how this actually affects our cell biology. And yes, in the note we sent out, we mentioned that it actually affects your DNA. It can disrupt, and I was shocked when I heard this and I saw this. It just can disrupt the structure and function of your DNA. When I hear that as an oncologist, when I hear that as a cancer treater, cancer specialist, it sets up a bell, an alarm bell, because if something affects your genes, if something affects your DNA, that opens you up to cancer. And yet, MDs in particular have not given the emotions or our thoughts or our spiritual lives that attention. I don't remember any time in medical school other than we had a rotation through psychology, a psychology rotation program, and it was just theories of psychology. We really did not understand, or we were not made to understand, or it was not emphasized to us how people's beliefs, how people's thinking, how the social and emotional environments, both at home and at work, can lay waste or enhance the functioning of all our body systems. So I think it's very, very important for you all to know about this. I just mentioned this earlier on. Chronic stress halts the body's natural DNA repairing system, which can potentially lead to the development of cancers. In our webinars, we talked about the brain. This would be a good MP3 or recording to have in addition to this, because we explain how the brain and the endocrine system work together. When you're talking about stress, you're talking about the effects of stress on the brain and on the endocrine system, as well as the immune system and the cardiovascular system. So it's very, very important. In our talk on antioxidants, we also mentioned that antioxidants, free radical damage, is really what is responsible for aging, and it acts as a foundation for many of the diseases that we have today. And what we know is that stress can increase inflammation. Stress can increase your susceptibility to free radical damage. So, of course, it's important that we understand how bad stress can be. We also mentioned that inflammation is a root cause of many of the chronic diseases that we have today, including heart disease down there, cancer, neurodegenerative conditions, and autoimmune disease. We're not going to dwell too much on that. Stress can also lead to obesity, and obesity in turn can lead to stress. It's kind of like a chicken and an egg situation. Which came first? Was it obesity or was it stress? It's hard to tell. These things develop over time and can be very, very insidious. What is most concerning to me and to several healthcare professionals is that stress is affecting us even while we are in the womb. Nowadays, pregnant women and mothers are dealing with a lot more stress in the environment than, let's say, 50 years ago. Kids are being exposed in the womb to high levels of stress hormones and stress neurotransmitters, which, in addition to the toxins that they're exposed to, can affect their brain's development even before they are born. That's terrible, because these kids are being born with severe limitations right off the bat. Not only that, but because we have not, especially if parents are not being equipped to know how to raise kids to be strong, to be emotionally mature, to help them kids deal with issues. Many of these kids are being raised today with very low levels of emotional intelligence as opposed to IQ. And yes, stress does affect their IQ, but kids are not being trained right now nowadays to be able to deal with emotional issues as they could before. And a lot of that is due to the single-parent households, the absentee father, mothers who are stressed, have to go to work, and so kids are being raised by, guess what, the TV. And there's a lot of research that shows that TV can raise your stress levels tremendously. In fact, a lot of research has been done with rats and mice, and I'm not saying we are mice or rats, but there are a lot of similarities in the way physiology works that we can deduce will happen in humans if we see them in rats and mice. One of the things they found out is that rats, mice who are raised by an inattentive mother, in other words, the mother has a paws-off approach, for instance. It doesn't pay attention to the kids, doesn't lick them, doesn't lick them regularly, doesn't hover over them. Those same rats, mice, are raised later on in life. They have tremendously high levels of stress hormones, which make them susceptible to heart disease, diabetes, and cancer, amongst other things. The same is true in kids, human kids. We're finding out that kids who are not given the proper attention, who are not disciplined, or if the discipline is harsh and inconsistent, those kids are raised and they have more stress hormones in their bodies. They are more prone to obesity, more prone to diabetes, and of course, it can lead to other conditions as well. So, why study stress? It's very, very important. I think as we go on further, you're going to see why some more. What you feel, let's talk about definitions. Stress is what you feel when life's demands exceed your ability to meet those demands. Another common definition is a condition or feeling experienced when a person perceives that demands exceed the personal and social resources the individual is able to mobilize. Okay, that's a mouthful, but here are a couple of things that you should think about. Stress is not just that in the environment there's suddenly a stressful event, but it's really more due to your perception of an event. A good example is people who are lonely, for instance, and we're going to talk about loneliness. People who are lonely, for instance, the different thresholds of loneliness. I think about, I think a good example is between Sherry and me. Sherry, you don't mind my talking about you. Sherry, I don't think you've ever been a day without friends and family around you. She's just a people person. She loves think she's in love with everyone, and she thinks everybody else is in love with her. I want to be around when she finds out that there's someone who actually does not like her. But she's just a lovable person. She got married when she was in college. She's got a wonderful husband, wonderful kids. She's got a great job. So she's pretty much she would have a very low threshold for being alone. I, on the other hand, I was shipped over to military school when I was 10, and ever since I've been that age onwards, I've basically never fit in. I've always felt the odd person out. I went to military school. I was in the equivalent of West Point, which was the Nigerian Defense Academy, for a couple of months. I found out it was too hot. I got admission into medical school, went into medical school. Didn't fit in there. So I've always felt pretty much like a loner. And so I have, on the other, as opposed to Sherry, have a very high tolerance for solitude. Although I am a people person, I love people. I love being around people too. But I think I also have a very, very high need to be alone many times. And so what I'm trying to say is this: the circumstances that could put Sherry into crazy mode, but in terms of solitude, would probably not affect me at all. So basically, it's a question of perception. Mm-hmm. And yes, there are things that affect everybody in the same way. I mean, if someone comes and starts calling you all kinds of crazy names, people would react to that too. So just basically trying to show that there are different levels and different things that can affect, that can stress people. Another example, of course, would be with people who are with phobias, fear of heights, fear of snakes, fear of foods. Someone who sees a plate of rice would probably wouldn't react to it. And another person who is anorexic would react terribly to it. So this perception is involved in all these things. But let's not slug that issue too much. We are talking primarily about emotional stress. But yes, all these other things like chemicals, heavy metals, biological agents, radiation can and will influence each other. In other words, emotional stress can increase your sensitivity to chemicals. Chemicals can increase your sensitivity to emotional stress. And the same goes all the way around. Work stress is also a problem. Over 75% of people report that they do not like their jobs. Why is that important? Boy, some of the research that they've done is actually shown that people who have problems with their coworkers, especially, I think the most stressful situation is a kind of conflict between a person and his immediate superior or his immediate supervisor. That they have found out has been the root cause, the most stressful. If there's a conflict, that's the kind of result in the highest levels of stress, especially for the subordinate. And they found out that stress at work can actually influence and affect your ability to heal from cuts and wounds and bruises. Yes, it can cause infections and all kinds of stuff. Even medical school students, they did tests on medical students, and they found out that exams, stress just that week of exams in medical students reduce their immune potency and lay them open for infections and flus and all that. So very, very important that we understand this. We cannot talk about all the different causes of stress. So basically, we're just trying to give you an overview. I'm going to refer you to some books too. So it's again, what we do with these webinars is basically just try and give you some understanding of how these things work. They are by no means comprehensive, by no means complete. Our hope is that we help you to think properly about certain issues, or we direct you to the most important issues that regard your health, and just help put you in the right direction. Of all the stresses, and Sherry, you can interrupt me anytime.
Okay.
Of all the stresses, emotional stresses that are out there, research shows that the top three are anger, anxiety, and depression. As a matter of fact, I think in our talk about the endocrine system, I mentioned about how depression, they found out that depression can predispose to heart attacks, heart failure, and even worse than that, depression can lead to bone loss, osteoporosis. I mean, what on earth, how can that be? How can something like depression cause osteoporosis? I mean, bone loss. I mean, how much sense does that make? Well, we're beginning to find these connections. And again, what we try and bring out in our webinars is that everything is connected. So I'm going to show you how depression connects with the other things, or stress as a whole. But I have these three asterisks here because anger has been found to be the most deadly of the three. And it's not just anger. You can be angry at your car or angry about the taxes and all that. But they found that hostility, especially hostility towards another fellow human being, can have the most damaging effect on your body, including cell function.
Wow.
Yep. And when I began to see that, I began to realize, it got me to thinking and studying some more, because if it's hostility toward another person, then our relationships with other people can play a very, very large role in our natural, the way our bodies work. And so it's extremely important that we understand that our relationships, our social relationships, especially our very close relationships, can really make or break our health. Depression, anger, and hostility all raise C-reactive protein levels. So what does that mean? C-reactive protein, or CRP, it's a test for the level of inflammation in your body. The higher the C-reactive protein levels in your body, the higher the level of inflammation. It doesn't matter whether you feel it or not. If your C-reactive protein levels are high, it means that what we call silent inflammation is going on in your body as we speak, and it's going to be just a matter of time before you start having major problems. So,
David, is it the same for men and women?
Is what the same?
The having those protein levels raised with the depression, the anger, and the hostility?
I think it is. I am not sure, but I think pretty much it is. Now, I think you've just raised a good question. We're going to get to Dr. Marianne Legato's book in a minute. And she wrote a book. She is trying to promote gender-specific medicine. In other words, she is world-renowned, and she has been studying the differences between men and women. And she wrote a book called Why Men Die First. Why Men Die First. And she shows physiologically how men are physiologically different from women, and how there are certain things about men's makeup that makes them more prone to disease, even from childhood. And I'll show you the book in a minute. Okay. So, like I said, I studied the need for social connection. Here's a great book, and it's called Healthy at 100. Again, Dr. Marvin is going to be talking about old age and the quest for longevity. I also did a webinar on longevity, but I tell you what, there's a difference between me doing something on longevity and someone like Dr. Marvin, who's basically been a geriatric doctor as well as being, he has been a gynecologist. He's done everything from birth to death, 50 years of medical experience. He's in his mid-70s. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. And so I really encourage you to attend that meeting, the webinar on Tuesday next week. And basically, I show this book because what this man has found out, John Roberts, and he studies a lot of the long-living cultures around the world, and he's found out that a key factor has been the social connections in those cultures. Over there, people are still tightly knit, even into the 80s and 90s. They don't treat them the way many people in the United States treat their parents or grandparents, just ship them off to somewhere and forget about them. In many of these cultures, the elderly person is still a vital part of the society, and they're paid a lot of deference, a lot of respect. And they found out that that is one of the reasons why people live to be longer. Of course, a lot has to do with their nutrition, a lot has to do with their environment, but that was a key thing too. Here's another book that I had to read, and I was like, this is amazing. We all have a need for social connection. This book just came out recently. Very, very important. Human Nature and the Need for Social Connection. They're beginning to show that loneliness, and let me show you a few quotes from there. functional magnetic resonance imaging. That's kind of CT scan, but it's a lot safer. Shows that the emotional region of the brain that is activated when we experience rejection, that is rejection, social rejection, is in fact the same region that registers emotional responses to physical pain. Boy, as a matter of fact, they are even finding out that when people are faced with the prospect of physical pain or emotional rejection, people will choose physical pain over emotional rejection over and over and over again. Wow. It is worse. It is a worse problem to the human body to be faced with emotional rejection than it is for physical pain. That's why one of the most the most severest punishment is isolation, and you see that in prisons. Solitary confinement is one of the severest punishments for people because we need social connection. Here's another thing. People with few social ties are at increased risk of dying from ischemic heart disease, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and a broader category that includes respiratory, gastrointestinal, and all other causes of death. An article in Science magazine revealed that social connection or social isolation, is on a par with high blood pressure, obesity, lack of exercise, or smoking as a risk factor for illness and early death. Really, we already know that, folks. It's intuitive. Basically, it just makes sense. All right, pathophysiology. Now, don't let that word throw you, but let's talk about how this.
I was hoping you were going to define it for us.
Okay. All right, pathophysiology simply means when things go wrong, how your body responds. It's just the pathology and physiology together. Physiology means how things work normally in your body. Pathology shows how things go wrong, and it's basically how your body responds to stresses and to problems.
Okay, thank you.
Here's a quote. Here's a picture, a slide that we have become all too familiar with, and it's basically showing this. PNI, the psychoneuroimmunology, basically shows that our minds influence our brains, represented by the hypothalamus, which will influence the endocrine system, which influences the immune system, which influences our 60-plus trillion cells in the body. Remember, we said perception. What goes on outside is perceived by the mind as either a threat or a beneficial effect, and whichever way it is transmitted in that way all the way down to your body cells. Let me show you how it works. If I can get this slide to move. All right. And here's a flight, fight, or freeze response. People just focus on the first two, flight or fight response. But there's a freeze response when you're petrified. You don't know what to do. You're just stuck like a deer in the headlights. Let's talk about stress. Well, there's good stress and there's bad stress. People tend to forget that. Good stress is, well, it's good for you. Bad stress isn't. And these are green. That's what I want to do. These are green arrows if you can't see. Basically, good stress simply means that our bodies, we are focused, we are attentive. There's a thing called flow. We are focused on getting the job done. We're focused on winning or doing this or that. And so our bodies, the chemicals in our bodies are geared towards that goal. That is good for you. I mean, not over a consistent period of time, but obviously there are times for rest and times to really get into stuff. And that's why people who are involved in challenging jobs, challenging careers, some of the healthiest out there, because we are geared, we are designed to really live life to the full, live full throttle. And living life to the full does not include boredom, does not include ease, just ease day in, day out. That can kill you. But we should be stressed, we should be pushed, we should be stretched to and sometimes beyond our limits, because as we know, when we're stretched, we tend to grow better than when we're not. Anyway, bottom line, this is good stress. Good stress is perceived by the mind, and we're working, it affects the brain. The brain releases hormones which affect the pituitary gland, which releases other hormones, you don't need to know what they are, which affect the adrenal glands, and which in turn affect the 12 systems. This is also called the HPA axis, the hypopituitary adrenal axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands. These are, the adrenal glands are what get burnt out. When you hear burnout, it's because these adrenal glands that secrete noradrenaline, that secrete cortisol, they are burnt out, they're exhausted. And I'm going to show you that picture in a minute. But bottom line, the good hormones, dopamine, is really responsible for that good feeling you have. Oxytocin is responsible for that. It's called the bonding hormone. When you're in good relationship with your close family members, or it helps you just, it's the bonding hormone is what helps to, it enhances your relationships. Testosterone is very, very important for both men and women. Don't think it's because it sounds like a man's thing. It's not. It's for both men and women, and we both need testosterone for good stress, to be able to perform activities, to have a good feeling about life. Estradiol is a kind of estrogen. That's just below testosterone there. You cannot see in the picture, but at the very bottom is called, I wrote cortisol, and we're going to see that in the next slide. Cortisol really is the problem where stress is concerned. Cortisol is raised also in good stress situations, but it's only a transient raise. It comes up, it is raised for a few minutes while, or however period of time it takes for you to get the job done. Now, what cortisol does is that it influences your metabolism. In other words, if you've got the job to do and you're really working towards it, cortisol raises your body's ability to burn carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And it actually helps the immune system to work better if it is controlled, if it is raised for a short period of time. Let's go to the next slide. When there's bad stress, when there's problem at home, problem at work, problem with your kids, and this goes on a chronic basis, day in, day out, day in, day out. You can see the red lines there, which means a bad thing. By the way, did you see the last one? The last one showed a face of, this over here, you have a face of grim determination. The next slide shows a face of despair, helplessness. Things are changing around him or her. She has no control, and that's another key thing. Stress is a question of control. Do you feel you can do something about this? If you don't feel you can do something about this, if you feel despair, if you feel hopeless, then I guarantee you, your levels of stress are high. Okay? So the hypothalamus, this thing keeps moving on me. So with bad stress, there's release of hormones which eventually cause the high increase of cortisol. And that stays on for quite a period of time. And when that stays on quite a period of time, and your cortisol levels are constantly high. Now, remember, there's a daily rhythm with cortisol. Cortisol, like I said, is what helps to improve your, it increases your metabolic processes. But if it's too high, that's not good. In the mornings, it's at its highest when you wake up, and it's at its lowest when you're just about to go to bed. With people who are constantly stressed, that peak, that rhythm is disrupted, and cortisol levels that are high for a period of time can affect all 12 systems. I'm going to show you how these affect the 12 systems. Remember, whatever affects the cell affects the body. So if we're talking about the body, we must look at the cell as a piece. Again, we showed you that slide earlier. Here's a list, and this is by no means exhaustive, but here are some things that chronically elevated cortisol levels can do. It just increases all kinds of things up there. Body fat, again, the chicken and the eggs thing, and anxiety, depression, mood swings. It affects the brain in a way that is, and again, I was surprised to see this, but chronic cortisol levels, folks, chronic cortisol levels can actually destroy cells in the hippocampus. And we mentioned this in our talk on the brain and the human brain and how it functions. They can destroy high levels of cortisol. If you're stressed all the time, high levels of cortisol can destroy cells in the hippocampus. Why is that important? Well, the hippocampus is one of the 2 or 3 areas in the brain where stem cells are produced. That's right, stem cells. We are still being trained in medical school, folks, and I asked this question about a year ago, we are still being trained in medical school to believe that once there's damage in the brain, and beyond a certain level that the brain does not regenerate, brain cells do not recover, brain cells die, and that's it. So if you're going to be paralyzed in one part, that's what happens for the rest of your life. But there are stories all over the world, and I know of one person personally who eventually went on to become a billionaire who was paralyzed when he was 17. He fell down in a drunken stupor. He cracked his back, he broke his back, and the doctor said he would not walk again. And by sheer will and determination, and also the power of love, he was in love with a lady who eventually became his wife. And through all that, by sheer willpower, he determined he was going to walk, and he eventually was fully healed, much to the surprise of the doctors. Bottom line, your body has a lot more potential than we give it credit for. Anyway, back to the point of stress. Stress destroys brain cells, which destroy your body, your brain's ability to bounce back, and which can, of course, predispose you to major problems in the future, including strokes. And stroke is the number 3 cause of death in the United States. So, very, very important. In our talk on the digestive system, we also mentioned that stress. Well, we mentioned that the brain is actually in the digestive system too, the tract, and problems in the gastrointestinal tract can affect your body. But problems in the brain can affect your gastrointestinal tract. Okay. Let me show you how that works a little bit more. So stress can raise cortisol levels. We've established that. Acute means for a short time. So there's acute immune system stimulation. Cortisol can stimulate your immune system. However, if that persists, then it becomes chronic, then it can result in one of two things. Immune cell death, just like chronically raised cortisol levels can cause brain cell death. It can also cause immune cell death. Now, why is that important? Your immune system. Your immune system is the one thing that is standing between you and a host of disease. In fact, I can say over 90% of problems have an immune system component. So the immune system is of first importance when you're talking about health and wellness. And so cortisol raised by stress can cause immune cell death. The other thing you can do, and these can work in tandem, it could cause autoimmune disease, and it's basically depending on what the person is exposed to at a particular time. It could be immune cell death, or it could be an autoimmune disease. And let's not get too technical. Now, they say that that creativity is simply the art of being able to conceal your sources. Now, I'm exposing my source right here. This is where I got some of the information I look for about cortisol and about stress from, and this is a great book called The Cortisol Collection. I encourage you to take a look at it. It's in most bookstores, and I really should get a tip for this, for just promoting this guy's book, but it's a really good book. Back to us thing on the mind, the will, and the mind and emotions. Okay, I need to move this on forward. Move on.
Hey, David?
Yeah.
I will just mention to people in our resources area, there is a book section, and we try to keep most of the books that you recommend linked there so people can have quick and easy access to the books that you mentioned.
Great. Yeah, sure. And, yeah, good idea. All right. Consequences of disturbed endocrine function. I just picked this slide out of our talk on the endocrine system because, again, the endocrine system is a key part of stress. Cortisol, of course, is a hormone produced by the endocrine system. When things are out of balance in your endocrine system, of course, that predisposes to stress. It makes stress worse. So therefore, and we're going to get to this in a minute, well, probably more than a minute, but we're going to get to it. And there are some nutritional supplements that help to improve the balance and coordination of your endocrine system. What can you do? And that's what it comes down to. That's really what it comes down to. You need to know what you need to do. And of course, the bottom line is this: if you don't believe that your body wants to be well, if you don't believe that your body wants to be healed and that it will work and do everything within its power to attain that end, if you don't believe that, well, you're really not going to take any sustained action towards getting things taken care of. I mean, you're going to live like you've always lived. When you have a problem, you just go to the doctor, have them give you an antibiotic or something else to take care of the symptom transiently, and then you go back to what you're doing until you get another problem. That's because we have not been trained. We have not been educated to understand that our responsibility is to help our bodies do what they were designed to do. And that's why we do what we do with these webinars. Bottom line, we need to build strength, and that's something we always talk about. The things you need to do on a day-to-day basis. If you read books, and I remember in medical school, we were trained, okay, these are the risk factors for certain things. And in other words, if you avoid these risk factors, the assumption is that you're going to be healthy. Well, that's not true. 50% of the risk factors, 50% of the risk factors for heart disease, excuse me, let me put it this way. People who have heart disease or heart attacks or heart failure, 50% of the people who have those problems don't even have the risk factors that cause the heart disease. The recognized risk factors, let's put it that way, the common risk factors like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking or drinking, and all those things. People, 50% of people who suffer from heart attacks don't even have those risk factors in the first place. So it's not a question of just moving away from something like a risk factor. The answer is to understand what you need to do to build strength on a daily basis, to improve your health, to improve your mind, to improve your body on a daily basis. That is what helps you be healthy. And of course, that's a lot more difficult because it's easy to move away from something than to move towards the right thing, because first of all, you need to know what that right thing is. It's all about strength. I have this quote from Proverbs. It says, if you falter, that means if you fail in times of trouble, how small is your strength? Okay? So where do we start building strength? Well, again, it comes down to knowledge. The same chapter. A wise man has great power. A man of what? Knowledge increases strength. So the key is, folks, we cannot emphasize that enough. The key is the right kind of knowledge. Benjamin Disraeli was the first Jewish Prime Minister of Britain, and he did a great job there. The right kind of knowledge is one that acknowledges, is one that shows that the body, the spirit, and the mind are all important in health, and that these are connected. The right kind of knowledge is what shows you how all three aspects of who we are connected. All right. As you grow older, and by the way, I strongly believe that we are designed to live in excess of 100 years. 120 would be ideal. Mm-hmm. But as we grow older, here's a graph. To your left side, you see the health levels, and 100%. Obviously, very few people ever get to 100%, so this is just basically theoretical. And of course, these are the years, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 years, and 120. At your mid-20s to late 20s are what are known as the golden years. That's when you are at your best. Mentally, emotionally, hormonally, immune system-wise, you're smart. The brain only gets fully developed. In case of judgment, your ability to make wise decisions when you're in your early to mid-20s. That is when the brain gets the part that controls what is known as executive function, the maturity part of the brain, called the prefrontal cortex. That is when it is fully developed. That's why, of course, teenagers do dumb things, because their brains aren't developed then, and they have these hormones raging throughout their system. But anyway, bottom line is that when you get to the age of 25, 30 seems to be the magic point. That's when things begin to diminish. 25 to 35 is when you have the maximum bone density. After 35, your bone density begins to diminish. So along with other systems, and of course in our talk about aging, we went through all the systems in the body. Actually, it's in the notes that we made available. All the systems in the body, we show how each system declines with age, the key parts in each system. Anyway, bottom line is this. For the average person, there's this orange line that goes all the way down. For the average person, he just declines as he grows older. I mean, he just slows down because that's what's expected. He doesn't know that he can do something about it. And of course, the person who abuses his body with excessive amounts of smoking, of tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs, other nasty things, will of course deteriorate a lot quicker than the average person does. But there's a third factor, the part where the smart person knows what to do, has the knowledge, and he begins to do those things. And really, there's no time that is too late, folks. You can always turn things around. That's the beauty of the human body. The human body has the capacity to turn things around. And if you if you know what to do, if you take charge, then your human body will begin to follow suit. And obviously, you're still going to decline, but you can reduce the rate of decline a lot more. Like you can reduce the incline, or you can reduce the incline or increase the incline. I'm not sure now. But anyway, bottom line, you get the picture. So let me just talk about my story real quick, because obviously people connect to you when you have a personal experience in these things. And really, folks, this is not to get your sympathy on or make you feel sorry for me. If you think so, well, you don't know me at all. I'm just saying this because this can help people. A couple of years, no. I meant a couple of weeks ago. You see, I played racquetball about 30 minutes ago. I'm still tired from the racquetball game. I'm trying to get water. Hang on, let me get a drink. Okay, I'm back. A couple of weeks ago, it seemed like the whole world was going to fall on top of me. Like some of you know, I left medicine. I left oncology, doing very, very well in my country. Came over here because I had a desire to learn things and also to share that knowledge with other people. And of course, that has set me at odds against a lot of people, especially my close family members. I have a younger brother who lives in the States, whom I love dearly. He receives emails each week from us, the way you all do, and he has not once and will not attend any of my webinars, any of our webinars, because obviously he doesn't believe I'm on the right track. Love him dearly, and of course that places that gets to me. It's naturally, as you would expect, it affects me. Obviously, my other family are not too happy about it. But my mother, whom is the closest human being to me, she had supported me, even though she did not understand. But she was very considerate and stayed with me. But a few weeks ago, she called and she was so distressed. I mean, it's like their son is going down the drain. He's ruining his life. He needs to get a job. He needs to go back to medicine. He needs to do what he can do, and blah 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 blah. And she called and she was really distressed, and that really affected me. So far, she had been holding up, but this time I think she just got lots of people saying all kinds of nasty things. Besides that, a couple of weeks ago, around the same time, someone who had promised to help. Basically, what we're trying to do, folks, is that we're trying to make the technology available where we have all the webinars available. Right now, we only have the audio files because to be able to store the videos takes a lot more storage, and of course, that means a lot more money. We also want to try and make a membership available where people can have access to everything at the same time at a very discounted rates. Obviously, to create the technology for that costs a lot of money. And someone had promised to help out. Person basically fell through, and it's not that I was expecting everything, but at least when people, and here's something you need to remember: foreigners have a tendency to take a lot of what people say in this country to heart, and so before you promise anybody anything, you need to make sure that you can deliver rather than just flippantly say things. Because we tend to take a lot of things to heart a lot more than the average person does. And the bottom line, we have gotten all the money together now to do everything we need to do. So that's why I'm saying this right now because we've passed that. We've passed that. But again, in addition to all that, I was, so the disappointments were there, and just the mere fact that we couldn't go on because of the finances. I'm a doer, folks. I need to do stuff, and when I'm stymied, and when I'm not able to do those things, I get really stressed out. I'm not a very patient person, and so basically, these were terrible times for me. As a matter of fact, I hate to say this, as a matter of fact, I began to feel pains in my chest, just basically from the stress of it all. And so I basically had to do what I knew to do, and that included exercising, including me taking double doses of the nutritional supplements I had. I hate the taste of this drink. This is we had somebody do a webinar about 5 months ago on arginine, and the company that produces arginine. Arginine is fantastic for your heart and your blood vessels. I hate the taste, but I had to take it anyway. It made me go to the toilet all the time, but I had to take it because I knew I had to take it to protect myself. And of course, I took the other nutritional supplements. And luckily, I play racquetball very, very well, so I always have people in this town calling me to play. And so I got to play with them. And even then, there were times when before I would get into the court, I would feel the pain in my chest, and I would be thinking to myself, should I really be doing this? But I did it all the same. Anyway, what I'm saying, I tried to do everything to ensure that my body was able to hold up. And of course, when all these things, movies was another thing. I would go see movies just to get distracted, just to distract myself, distract my mind from the stresses. But when all these things failed, I could always turn to Sherry and just download on her, just take it out on her completely.
That's what I'm here for.
That's right, punching bag. But she was really, really good. She's been a really dear friend and really helped me through this period. So thank you, Sherry.
You're welcome.
All right, let's talk about general principles. Again, we mentioned all these 4 principles. You've seen this a lot, so I'm going to stay with it. Let's talk about nutrition, because if there's one thing that you have control over, I would say it's what you put in your mouth. You can't always change your thoughts because you've been so programmed to think in a certain way, but you can, on a dime, change what you put in your mouth. And of course, the easiest way is to get a nutritional supplement in addition to whatever food you're taking. Increase your water intake, your good filtered water intake, for one. Not tap water, but filtered water. Okay? The human body heals itself, and proper nutrition provides the resources needed to accomplish that task. This is a legend in nutrition. Makes a lot of sense. There are about 7 or 8 different food groups. We're not going to mention all of them, but here I'm just mention a couple. Vitamins and minerals. Vitamin C, vitamin E are crucial for good adrenal health. Remember, what happens in burnout is when your adrenal glands are exhausted. They're the ones that produce all your stress hormones. When they're exhausted, you experience burnout, and of course, stress levels, cortisol rises, and all that. Anyway, magnesium is very, very important. It helps give you a sense of calm. Magnesium does. Calcium sometimes does the opposite thing. Essential amino acids. That book, Cortisol Connection, has about 7 foods that you need for your health to reduce cortisol levels. I encourage you to go to that. I think it's page 207. Go to that book and get it. Essential fatty acids, very, very important. Omega-3s, we've had a talk on that. Get the MP3. Very, very important for that. It helps reduce inflammation, and stress is very closely partnered with inflammation. Antioxidants, of course, we know why that is important. Glyconutrients, very, very important, folks. Very, very important. Glyconutrients, they're sugar nutrients. We have a talk on that too, called Glyconutrients in You, and they help your cells to communicate better. Well, what does that mean? It basically helps. Bottom line, if your body is to work, your body is to work properly, if your immune system is to work properly, let me use the immune system as an example. If your immune system is to work properly, the cells of the immune system have to be able to communicate and communicate effectively with each other. In other words, if an immune cell sees a virus, it has to be able to send a signal to the right quarters together to mobilize the right kind of immune cells that will take care of that specific virus. So glyconutrients are key to even the brain and how every cell in the body works. It has to include communication, and so communication is very important. Another thing I remember I was taking a lot, let me put it this way. I forgot to take phytosterols during this whole stressful period, and I just can't imagine why I was so stupid not to have taken phytosterols. Phytosterols help to replenish. They act as the building blocks for your hormones in your body. The red leaf clover and I think the Mexican wild yam are stock full of phytosterols, which phyto means plant, sterols mean like steroid hormones. In our talk on the endocrine system, we talked about which steroid hormones, I mean, which kind of hormones there are. There are steroid hormones, there are protein hormones, and there are amino acid hormones. Anyway, steroid hormones are the ones that produce testosterone, progesterone, estrogen, and cortisol, and the other adrenocortisol, norepinephrine, adrenaline, all those fight hormones. Your body needs to have these hormones in good balance, and phytosterols can help you achieve that balance. All right, generals. We talked about the generals. We mentioned a little bit about the specifics, but let's go into that some more. I mentioned this book earlier on, Why Men Die First. A lot of it has to do with men not being as emotionally expressive as women are, believe it or not. The people have found out, researchers found out that people who hold things in, who are not expressive, and men are more prone to that than women are. When people hold things in, it can disrupt your immune system, disrupt your endocrine system, it can cause some damage inside. Anyway, she goes into a great deal of detail about this. It's a brilliant, brilliant book by a brilliant, brilliant person. Anyway, bottom line, I tracked her down on the internet. This is Dr. Marianne Legado. This is her Barbie doll picture. She's probably 1937. Wow, I shouldn't be telling a woman's age, but amazing lady. She's in the who's who list of every list out there. She has, her resume has a list of accomplishments long enough to choke a horse. She is accomplished in every way, shape or form. Anyway, bottom line, she promotes gender-specific medicine. She wants to encourage the public on what they need to do, men and women, what specific precautions they need to be able to take to be healthy. And good news, she's going to be here on the 10th. Well, not here, but she's going to be doing a presentation on that issue on the 10th, Tuesday, I think. All right, so look out for that. All right, things to do, things to avoid, the do's and the don'ts. Again, your focus should always be on the central governing mechanism of the human body. The mind, press the wrong thing. Sorry. Still press. Excuse me, folks. All right. Get this right. All right. Whatever you need to understand, whatever affects that central governing system, your nervous system, your endocrine system, and your immune system, will predispose you to more stress. We did talk about this, we talked about this in including your body's, improving your body's ability to defend itself. We've mentioned some chemicals that disrupt your endocrine system, foods that disrupt your endocrine system. You can get the slides from this. Of course, your brain, all kinds of things affect your brain, especially kids' brains, because their brains are just developing. One thing, folks, you need to know about some of the things that you put in your mouth on a daily basis, like the things that contain aspartame, MSG, common things. That would include diet drinks, diet sodas, and a host of other things. What you need to know about them, you just need to stop it. That's all. You need to stop it. There are DVDs. I just mentioned these two DVDs that are out there, and they show the disruptive effects these chemicals can have on your body. There are things that organizations have hidden, really, that are now being brought to light, and we're seeing a lot of connection between these chemicals and brain tumors. There's actually a neurosurgeon by the name Russell Blaylock, who did a couple of presentations on this video, on these two videos, and he's explaining the damage that these do to the brain. And being a neurosurgeon, he should know what he's talking about. When it comes to the do's, I can really summarize them under 5 main things, and these are things we must give attention to. And really, folks, we put a lot of thought to it. This is in order of importance, the things you need to do when it comes to dealing with stress. You need to watch the words you speak. Sherry called me on the carpet a couple of times when I was saying some nasty things during that stressful period, and she corrected me, and I'm glad she did, because I could have just gone off with them. The words you speak, the beliefs you hold dear, the thoughts you think, the food you eat, and the use you make of your bodies, which include what you put in, like drugs and tobacco and alcohol and other things. You need to become intelligent about these 5 things. And really, we're going to be talking about how words affect your body, how your thoughts affect your body. Bernie Siegel did some talk on that, and we really appreciate what he's been a good friend, and he's really helped us with a lot of good insight into what we need to do. But we're going to be going into these a lot deeper in the weeks and months to come. There's our book again, Brain Nutrients, very important, how to handle stress. And basically, we're just going to go through these spiritual support, handle stress. You need to, like I said, you need to pay attention to all these different aspects. Just by paying attention to one, it will help, but it will not put the whole picture. Now, this doesn't mean if you're lonely, you need to just go out and grab the first man or woman you can fall in love with and then shack up.
Right. That's too stress.
Yeah, that would cause more stress. The bottom line is for you, to take steps towards strengthening your relationships, but also know what you need to do to protect your body. So, for instance, if you don't have someone you're with, understand that you have options to improve the nutrition that you expose your body to, and, of course, avoid certain things. That way, it's going to reduce the amount of stress. It may not reduce it completely, but it will reduce the amount of stress your body is going through, because all these things, social connection, good food, good beliefs, good jobs, good careers, all play a role in the level or otherwise of your stress. I put it down here, become involved in the work that is in line with what you love to do. One of the things I found out with multi-level companies, and people still say a lot of nasty things about multi-level companies, but really, if you think about it, these companies have provided a way for people to, first of all, have a mission, also have a way to take control and take control of their financial futures. It's allowed women to stay at home with their young kids and pay more attention to them. It's allowed people, husbands and wives, to come together in the pursuit of a certain goal. All those things are absolutely beneficial for your health. And so when people lambaste multi-level companies, I think it's unfortunate, because there's a lot of good to be said for being involved in direct selling. I don't do it much, but I see the value in it. So please look into that. Don't turn a blind eye to it. Or deaf ear. All right, here are a few other things. Oh, this thing has come up quite a few times, hasn't it? Okay. Also, move, exercise. If there's one thing that covers the whole spectrum of benefits for you, is exercise. Just being able to exercise. Of course, being stressed out, if you're under chronic stress, it's less likely that you're going to take actions that will help and benefit good actions, because being stressed, really, it warps your ability to think properly. It warps your ability to make good decisions. But by doing some of these things, your executive functioning will improve. But exercise is very, very important. If you can get to walk around, just walk around in the sun, for instance, will help to improve your mood a lot more, because, of course, that includes vitamin D. It helps your immune system. It helps your endocrine system. Mm-hmm. All these that we've mentioned in the past would really, I just look at everything else as compared to having a sense of purpose, compared to having spirituality, a good spirituality. I look at everything else as really commentary, colored bubbles, damage control. Yes, yeah, I think that's the word, damage control, compared to having a sense of purpose. Let me show you a few things why I say this. Viktor Frankl is a psychiatrist. He's a Holocaust survivor. He was in Auschwitz. I mean, he was the person who looked at people and found out. He studied why people survived in the concentration camps under the most grueling conditions, and why others gave up and died. And this is the conclusion he came up with. Our fundamental drive, the motivational engine that powers human existence, is the pursuit of meaning. We have a need. We have a ingrained need to be active and to feel that our lives mean something. Mm-hmm. And if there's one aspect of our lives that helps us to achieve that, it's what we're involved in probably most of our waking period, and that is work, career you're involved in. And this is probably one of the wisest men who ever lived. I know, this is what he says, I know there is nothing better. Think about it. Nothing better. That would include games, spouses, life, enjoyment. There is nothing better for a man than to enjoy his work, because that is his lot. Mm. And he goes on to say that God has implanted a sense of a purpose in men's hearts and minds, which nothing under the sun but God alone can satisfy. Very, very important that we understand that we are here for a purpose. We're here to fulfill that purpose. And if we don't find that purpose, if we don't walk in that purpose, you will live an unfulfilled life. And what's worse, you will be stressed. And that's why we do what we do. And that's why our focus is not just on the body, it's not just on the mind, but it's right there on the spiritual aspect of who we are. The spiritual aspect of who we are governs how we think, what we believe, and the actions that we take. It's kind of like in the movie. Do you guys remember that movie? What's that movie called again? Star Wars. Remember in the first movie, the first installment, well, now it's the fourth installment, but remember when they were getting ready to attack the Death Star, and at the conference they were like, the person who was explaining to the troops what they needed to do, he said, only a direct hit, only a precise hit will set up the chain reaction that will lead to the total, complete destruction of the Death Star. Only the people, and eventually, of course, it became Luke Skywalker, that was able to make that direct hit. That was what enabled the rebellion to win. Well, in the same way, in the final analysis, what makes your life worth living is by focusing on that spiritual aspect of who we are and maintaining it, developing it, and making the most of it. And that's why we do what we do. All right, folks. Said enough. Questions?
Yes, let me see. Okay. Does stress affect arthritis?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Remember, inflammation, which is what arthritis is, inflammation is triggered, it's made worse by high cortisol levels, which comes out as a result of stress. So yes, it can be made worse. And I know Dr. Steve saw me, and probably we should get Steve if Steve has anything to say. Steve, if you have anything to say and you want to say something, just go ahead, and Sherry can unmute you.
Yeah.
We know that stress can make things worse. Feedback mechanism, biofeedback mechanisms can help you, along with other things like acupuncture, massage, meditation, can help reduce the level of stress.
Okay, also while I'm asking these questions, if anybody would like to type more in, please feel free to do that. Somebody was wanting you to show the fundamentals of healthy living. That slide again?
Mm-hmm. Okay, will do. All right, next question.
Okay, let's see. Okay, about what happens with adrenal exhaustion and low thyroid activity.
what happens with adrenal exhaustion and low thyroid activity?
Yeah, I don't know if the question is in regards to if there's a connection, or I'm just wondering what happens. It says what happens with adrenal exhaustion or low thyroid activity.
That's you might want to clarify what you mean by that. Low thyroid activity simply means, well, the thyroid gland is primarily for it's a metabolic hormonal regulator. I mean, it regulates your metabolic rate, which is what cortisol does to an extent. But cortisol is only for emergencies, for the most part. Thyroid happens throughout the day. So when thyroid levels are low, it means your metabolism is reduced. You're slower in your thinking. You're slower in your functioning. People tend to gain weight because their metabolism has slowed down. They have bad moods, and it could predispose to infections and other things. Adrenal fatigue simply means that the adrenal gland has just been churning out stress hormones and churning out stress hormones and churning out stress hormones, and we know what those stress hormones can do. But after a while, the adrenal gland becomes exhausted, and it's not able to even deal with even minor emergencies, which again can predispose to infections and other problems like disease.
Okay. Can you review what the 12 systems are again?
Sure. Well, the three we've mentioned: the nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system, of course, the gastrointestinal, the respiratory, the cardiovascular, the skin, which is also known as the integumentary system, the reproductive system, the urinary system, the skeletal system, the muscular system, and I know I'm almost going to forget one or two. Yikes. I'll remember this 12th one. We usually have a slide up to show that, but I think I missed it. But keep going. What are the questions are there?
Okay, we just have a couple more questions. I think Dr. Sumi was going to call in. He was actually just listening online. He said he was going to call back in, though. I know this is a very general question, but it is, what did David say reduces stress? I mean, there's probably a list of things. If you were to pick the top couple of things that people can do to reduce stress, what would they be?
Barring social contact, I think that's probably having a good social contact. Some people recommend dogs because dogs can help you reduce stress. Research has shown that. Going out, again, these are all temporary. These are all damage control, like I put it. Comedy, watching some really good hearty comedy can reduce stress because when you laugh, laughter can produce the good hormones. The ones I mentioned in the picture that I showed earlier on, those will increase the good hormones and will reduce stress. What I personally did, and I kind of one of the reasons why the stress affected me so badly during that time was because one of the things was that I had slacked in my Bible reading, my Bible meditation, and I had just basically slacked in that, and I was not giving attention to those things, and that's why the things hit me as badly as they did. And so for those of you who have a Christian perspective, that's one of the strongest things that can be out there to help. The Bible and meditating on the Word can have such a great effect. Again, it doesn't matter what your philosophy is. Each philosophy, each religion does have a place for that meditation, solitude, thinking, contemplation that will help to improve your spiritual life and to calm your emotions. There's research that's being done right now that's unearthing a lot of correlation between people who have a strong religious life and good health. Very, very strong correlation. What else? I go see movies. Exercise, big time. You need to exercise. I mean, if you're good at a game that is tasking, that challenges you, that makes you move around a lot, that's probably one of the best stress relievers out there. I always feel better after a game of racquetball.
Mm-hmm. You're always a lot nicer after a game of racquetball, too.
That's because I'm hungry, so I can't afford to argue with you anymore. I'm hungry and tired.
I usually say, go read your Bible, go play racquetball. Okay, I think I have Dr. Summy unmuted. Dr. Summy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yay!
Hey. How are you?
Terrific. Wonderful call or webinar.
Thank you. So you want to weigh in? I'm sure there are some things that you wanted to talk about. I mean, you've spoken about the healthy heart and stress a couple of months ago, so we'd really love to hear your take on this.
Well, you did such a good job of, and of course, it's a lot of data, lots of seminars and all that. So it's tough in a few minutes to connect that, but I can do maybe a 3-minute job of that.
Sure.
In fact, I went down to the...
I'm sorry, by the way, Sherry, you just want to say who Steve Summy is?
Pardon?
You want to just tell people who Dr. Summy is?
Oh, okay. I don't have his bio in front of me, but he is one of our dear friends and has been one of our webinar guests several times, talking about heart math and heart health and heart and stress, and he's just a wealth of information. So that's who we're hearing also, in addition to Dr. David, is Dr. Steve Summy.
I'll make it real short in terms of, that's enough about me, but I just got my new website up, and so if you want to know a little bit more about my background, you can go to Summey, S-U-M-M-E-Y, health.com. So we just got it up and running, so anybody has any corrections or typos or things, please send them back. So anyway, yeah, thanks for this just a couple minutes here. I just presented a week and a half ago to the Colorado Association of Health Underwriters this heart math connection, because they're very interested in wellness. It's interesting to hear that the health underwriters, those guys are actually who's paying for sickness care, and they're very motivated to get the public in Colorado especially, but in the nation. That just happened also in Washington today as well. There was a major wellness conference with Dr. Andrew Weil and Dr. Himmet Oz and a few other doctors. So it's interesting to see these two things taking place in the same day. I was down at the Colorado Legislature talking to the Senate committee, and there's a wellness bill that is just going to be passing through Colorado Senate on wellness. So in this whole subject, I brought up the Colorado Association of Health Underwriters because I lectured to them last year. I was on the panel, and then they had me up there a couple weeks ago, or down in Colorado Springs, and I talked about heart math, and I talked about how I integrate stress reduction in my practice, and it was my fiance who actually introduced me to this technology, and I was amazed when I went on the website heartmath, MATH.org, and I just like a whole new world opening up, and this was about 2.5 years ago. So we went out and got licensed as one-on-one practitioners to be able to do biofeedback, because connecting the heart and the brain is such an important thing. Now, of course, we think, geez, if you're not connected, you're dead, right? Well, some people are that way. They haven't stopped, walking around, but they're really not connected very well in terms of their brain and their heart. They're just thinking all intellectually, and they're really not putting the passion into things like I know you do, Dr. David. You're so good about that, and really helping to get it. Emotionally, I think a lot of men have trouble with that because we tend to be more in our head than in our heart, and women tend to do better with that because they tend to communicate more from an emotional standpoint. So, a few years ago when I learned about this technology, that we actually have these 40,000 neurons in our heart, and the heart has a little brain there, and the more we can get connected, and I found this out as I was lecturing, that the more I can connect with the audience on an emotional level, the better the communication seems to be. And we all have seen these people. We've met some people that maybe we've never met them before, but all of a sudden we make a strong connection. Intuitively, we know that, boy, I think I need to get to know this person better, or, gee, I feel like I've always known this person. They're just very similar in values, and their characteristics are similar. And that's what's happening is our hearts are actually making that connection. You can measure the electromagnetic force of the heart that actually transfers out about 8 feet, and that's about 6,000 times the force of the brain, which is incredible. And so that's why you can actually measure this. We used to just say, well, I have a gut feeling, or I have a good feeling about this, or sometimes not so good feeling, and you need to get away from that person if you don't have a good feeling. And we need to trust this intuition of ours. And really what it is the heart as a sensory organ. That's really what the heart, obviously a pump and an endocrine organ, and we have this physical pulsating muscle that is essential for life, but we also have this electromagnetic force that affects every cell in the body electromagnetically, and you can measure it on the fingertip and on the earlobe or anywhere in the body. And that's what HeartMath is all about, is being able to get that biofeedback and find out if your body is in a coherent state. It's not about relaxation. It's about being able to get that good communication between your heart and your brain. And that's a synchronization process that takes place, and it helps to decrease cortisol. As you've been talking about, it helps to increase DHEA by 100% after only 6 weeks of practice on this biofeedback technology. So that's just it's amazing stuff, and I could go on, but I've talked long enough.
Wow. Well, folks, you need to get what's your website again? You mentioned your website.
Yeah, it's Summey Health, SUMMEY, SummeyHealth.com.
SummeyHealth.com. I've been there. It's pretty impressive. I like what you've done with the website there. That's great. Great stuff.
Thank you.
And you mentioned something about intuition, and basically, I think everybody can relate to this. But whenever we have gone against our intuition, whenever we've gone against that still small voice, or that feeling to stop doing something or to do something, well, we've gone against it. Not only have things not gone too well for us, but also it has resulted in some stress, whether it's regrets, or whether it's a bad feeling, or whether it's just guilt. So it's very, very important, folks, to listen to your inner self and train. And I think in HeartMath, do they talk about how to improve your inner life and how to improve your ability to withstand stress in the future?
Absolutely. That's one of the main things that they don't talk about, how to think, or how to, what philosophy you should be, or what religion or anything. They don't go into that at all, but they have these biofeedback tools, the little portable M-Wave personal stress reliever, they call it, and then there's one that hooks up to your computer. It's called an M-Wave PC for personal computer, and that really literally helps you use your computer as a biofeedback device, and just within a few minutes you can pretty much pick up on. They even have a little coherence coach and all that kind of walks you through this process. But yeah, it's all about helping in our periodically during the day. There's stress. We have stress, and this is one thing that amazed me. And you think when you're sleeping, you're not stressed, right? Most people think that, gosh, but how many people they say, oh, well, I think I'm sleeping 8 hours, but I don't feel refreshed. I wake up and I'm just like, gosh, I need to go back to bed again. Right. And that, I found out the other day, it is one of these revelations that I was a little tired, and I know what you guys do too. When you prepare for these webinars, you tend to sometimes stay up a little late and prepare for it. And so I was on the unit, and I was doing the breathing and relaxing, getting that feedback, and it feels so good when you can actually help get your brain and your heart synchronized. And I fell asleep. Now that's not the intention, but that's what happened. And I woke up and I looked at it, and I was not in a good coherent state. I was actually like kind of not flatlined like the EKG type of thing, but the whole thing had just kind of like fallen apart. And I thought, what the heck happened? But our brain sometimes kind of wanders, and it moves into areas where we're trying to solve these problems, and that can be sometimes a stressful thing. So because you're sleeping doesn't mean that you're recuperating. And so, yeah, to answer that question, they're really good about helping practice on a consistent basis. And like I mentioned, 6 weeks of consistent practice, you can lower your cortisol by 23% and raise your DHEA by 100%, which without doing anything else, just getting the stress off your nervous system.
Right. Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Steve, and we're looking forward to having you on our webinar sometime in the future.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thank you, David.
Right. Sure. Talk to you later.
Okay.
And someone just mentioned I think we'll just take the last question. Will stress affect chronic fatigue syndrome? In one word, yes. And folks, stress can also increase your susceptibility to allergens, allergies, all kinds of stuff. Again, there's just so much, only so much we can do, but it's a concern. So this is our website. Sherry, you have any questions? Any more things you want to add?
Nope, this has been great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight.
All right. Thanks, folks. See you Tuesday next week. Have a good weekend.
Good night.
Night.